Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Okay, today I'm going to make a video about something completely different than what I usually talk about. If you watch my videos on a regular basis, you know that I love young adult books, right? But it's important to know that my undergraduate degree is in creative writing and film studies, so I was an English major. I took a lot of English classes back in the day, Victorian lit class, Southern lit classes, all kinds of things. A whole class on Toni Morrison. And I do love literary fiction. I just don't read it very often, right? Partly because I don't ever know what's the best thing out there or what's somebody talking about. And I watch a lot of reviews and I'm like, well, I kind of like it, but I can't really get into it. So last year, I was watching a video, I think it was by Max at Well Done Books, and I love Max, he's one of my favorite booktubers. And he was talking about the Manbooker Prize, and I had kind of through time heard about the Manbooker Prize, but I didn't really know much about it. And so I watched his videos, and he would read all the books, and he would talk about them and whatever. And I got very interested in it, but I didn't read anything off the list. So last week I was on Twitter and I noticed, I actually think it was Max, retweeted something about the Manbooker Prize. And so I went to their Twitter and I looked to see what books they had up. Now here's the deal, I want to read you, I went to the Manbooker Prize website, which I can link below so you guys can check out. It says the Manbooker Prize. The Manbooker Prize was established in 1969. The winner receives £50,000 as well as £2,500 awarded to each of the shortlisted authors. Both the winner and the shortlisted authors are guaranteed a worldwide readership plus an increase in book sales. So it's actually a really cool award because it's bringing exposure to authors that might not necessarily get the same exposure that other authors would, right? Now, I thought it was going to be deeply intellectual books that I would have a really hard time even comprehending on some level, if that makes sense, because I don't typically read this stuff anymore, right? So I went in and I looked at the short list, and I'm gonna read to you each book and each synopsis in just a second. The first one is 4321 by Paul Auster, I love him as an author. I've read several of his pieces. History of Wolves by Emily Friedland. Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. Elmet by Fiona Mosley, Lincoln and the Bardo by George Saunders, and Autumn by Ali Smith. And they've already made the long list, which you can also go in here and look and see what the long list is of all the nominated books. Let's see, and then on the short list came out 9/13. So I guess that's what I saw last week was the short list. And then the winner is announced on October 17th. So I'm really going to try to read all of these books before October 17th because I know after that I'll just read the winner. That's just who I am, right? Very much like the Academy Awards. So I want to go in here and read all of the books. And actually, speaking about the Academy Awards, it's really interesting. A couple years ago, I grew up watching the Academy Awards with my mother, and it's just a really meaningful thing to me. And I don't remember it was the year that Lincoln came out, and Argo, and Django Unchained. And is that what the movie is called? And, yes. And The Impossible. Oh, that movie was so great. But anyway, I went in and I took a Thursday and a Friday off from work, and I just went and back-to-back saw every nominated movie. And that year, with the exception of one movie, I had seen everything. And so it was really cool because I felt like I was really part of something. And, even though I'm not part of the Manbooker Prize whatsoever, to read all the contestants and to kind of have an idea of what's going on is a cool thing as well. So I want to go in here and I want to tell you about each of these books. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is 4321 by Paul Auster, and I think this sounds so cool. It says, on March 3rd, 1947, in the maternity ward of Beth Israel Hospital in Newark, New Jersey, Archibald Isaac Ferguson, the one and only child of Rose and Stanley Ferguson, is born. From that single beginning, Ferguson's life will take 4 simultaneous and independent fictional paths. Four Fergusons made of the same genetic material, four boys who are the same boy, will go on to lead four parallel and entirely different lives. Family fortunes diverge, love and friendships and intellectual passions contrast. Chapter by chapter, the rotating narratives evolve into an elaborate dance of inner worlds enfolded within the outer forces of history, as one by one the intimate plots of the Four Ferguson stories rush on across the tumultuous and fractured terrain of mid-20th century America. A boy grows up again, again, and again. And here's the cover of it. It's about 880 pages. I almost got it for Audible, but then I picked a different one instead. So we'll talk about the one that I picked in just a second. The next book is called Days Without End by Sebastian Barry. Here is the cover. And it says on here, is this, yeah. After signing up for the U.S. Army in the 1950s, aged barely 17, Thomas McNulty and his brother-in-arms, John Cole, go on to fight in the Indian Wars and, ultimately, the Civil War. Having fled terrible hardships themselves, they find themselves these days to be vivid and filled with wonder. Despite the horrors they both witness and are complicit in, their lives are further enriched and endangered when a young Indian girl crosses their paths and the possibility of lasting happiness emerges, if only they can survive. And then the next, oh no, this is like the long version. Hold on a second. Yeah, this is like, okay. So that was not on the short list, you guys. The short list is 4321 History of Wolves, Exit West. So hold on a second. And Autumn. So Autumn is on here by Ali Smith. How about Autumn 2016? The last one that I read, scratch that. I don't edit, but scratch that. But you can read it too. I'm sure it's a fantastic book. It's just on the long list, not the short list. How about Autumn 2000? I love the cover of this book, first of all. Is that not just absolutely gorgeous? It reminds me of like Our Town from back in the day. How about Autumn 2016? Daniel is a century old. Elizabeth, born in 1984, has her eyes in the future. The United Kingdom is in pieces, divided by a historic once-in-a-generation summer. Autumn is a meditation on a world growing and ever more bordered and exclusive, on what richness and worth are, on what harvest means. This first is a seasonal quartet, casts an eye over our own time. Who are we? What are we made of? Shakespearean jeu d'esprit, Keatsian melancholy, the sheer bright energy of 1960s pop art. The centuries cast their eyes over our own history making. Oh my God, beautiful. From this imagination of Ali Smith comes a shape-shifting series, wide-ranging in time scale, and light-footed through histories, and a story about aging and time, and love in stories themselves. Oh my God, love it. Okay, so that's that one. Let's see which one I missed. Okay, I was gonna say this for last, but History of Wolves, and this is the one that I actually bought on Audible, and I'm 2 hours into it right now, and it is fantastic, okay? By Emily Friedland. Linda, age 14, lives on a dying commune on the edge of the lake in the Midwest of America. She and her parents are the last remaining inhabitants, the others having long since left amid bitter acrimony. She has grown up isolated both by geography and her understanding of the world, and is an outsider at school, regarded as a freak. One day she notices the arrival of a young family in a cabin on the opposite side of the lake. She starts to befriend them, first their 4-year-old son Paul, and then his mother Patra, who is also lonely and isolated. For the first time she feels a sense of belonging that has been missing from her life. Leo, the father, is a university professor and an enigmatic figure perpetually absent. When he returns home, Linda is shunned by the family unit. Desperate to be accepted again, she struggles to resume her place in their home and fails to see the terrible warning signals, which have such devastating consequences. And here's the cover of it. And it is so good, you guys. I'm like, I can't believe I'm so far into it already. Let's see. And then Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. In a city swollen by refugees but still mostly at peace, or at least not yet openly at war, Saeed and Nadia lock eyes across their classroom. After a while they talk, he makes her smile, and they start to fall in love. They try not to notice the sound of bombs getting closer every night, the radio announcing new laws, the curfews and the public's executions. Eventually the problem is too big to ignore. It's not safe for Nadia to live alone, and she must move in with Saeed, even though they are not married. And that too is a problem. Meanwhile, rumors are spreading of strange black doors in secret places across the city. Doors that lead to London or San Francisco, Greece, or Dubai. One day soon, the time will come for Nadia and Saeed to seek out one such door, joining the great outpouring of these fleeing a collapsing city, hoping against hope, looking for their place in the world. Exit West. Now that sounds really, really good, doesn't it? So I'm going to have to get that. Okay, that might be my next one that I read. And then, is this one up here? Okay, I'm gonna go back up and make Lincoln, Elmet, and Lincoln. Okay, so then the next one is Lincoln and the Bardo by George Saunders. Here is the cover. Beautiful. All of these books have such beautiful covers. On 22nd February 1862, 2 days after his death, Willie Lincoln is laid to rest in a marble crypt in a Georgetown cemetery. That very night, shattered by grief, his father Abraham arrives at the cemetery, alone under cover of darkness. Over the course of that evening, Abraham Lincoln paces the graveyard unsettled by the death of his beloved boy, and by the grim shadow of a war that feels as though it is without end. Meanwhile, Willie is trapped in a state of limbo between the dead and the living, drawn to his father with whom he can no longer communicate, existing in a ghostly world populated by the recently passed and the long dead. Unfolding in the graveyard over a single night, narrated by dazzling chorus of voices, Lincoln and the Bardo is a thrilling exploration of death, grief, and the deeper meaning and possibilities of life. You guys, these books! Like, and I wouldn't have known about any of these books had I not, like, gone and looked at this list. So, I'm so happy that I did. Okay. And then the last book isn't even on here. Why not? 2. Is that it? Elmet. Fiona Mosley. Daniel is heading north. He is, that sounded real phony, didn't it? Fiona Mosley. Did you guys ever listen back in the day on NPR? My mom and I used to listen to it. I think it was every Sunday night. It was called Thistle and Shamrock, and it'd be like, this is Fiona Ritchie. Or whatever her name was. I loved that so much. I can't do accents to save my life. Daniel is heading north. He is looking for someone. The simplicity of his early life with Daddy and Kathy has turned sour and fearful. They lived apart in the house that Daddy built for them with his bare hands. They foraged and hunted. When they were younger, Daniel and Kathy had gone to school, but they were not like the other children then, and they were even less like them now. Sometimes Daddy disappeared and would return with a rage in his eyes. But when he was at home, he was at peace. He told them that the little corpse in Elmet was theirs alone. The little cops in Elmet was theirs alone. But that wasn't true. Local men, greedy and watchful, began to circle like vultures. All the while, the terrible violence in Daddy grew. Elmet is a lyrical commentary on contemporary English society and one family's precarious place in it, as well as an exploration of how deep the bond between father and child can go. Okay, so that's probably the last one I'll read on the list, because that doesn't sound nearly as exciting to me, but I'm sure it's quite wonderful. So, but the other ones I'm excited about reading, especially the Paul Auster one that's 4321. Look, I got my hair done. What was I gonna say? History of Wolves. So good. It's like young adult contemporary meets like literary fiction. It's fantastic. It's beautifully written. The way that she notices like the very smallest nuances of things is just, it's unbelievable. So go check out the Manbooker Prize. I will list it underneath here. If you guys don't know anything about it, you'll educate yourself a little bit like I did today on reading more about it and knowing how this whole thing works. So anyway, I hope that was interesting to you guys a little bit. I don't know. So I will do reviews of those books as I read them. I love you guys, and I will talk to you later. Bye.